And as that sample size continues to grow and he continues to play at a high level, he's going to continue to rise. And I think he's destined to ultimately be our top offensive tackle.
What's going on, everybody? Draft Network's scouting team here to give you yet another update for our latest TDN 100, our top 100 prospects eligible for the 2023 NFL Draft. And we are focused on the offensive tackles, the big guys up front today on this video. And I'm going to start with you, Keith. I want to know, when you look at the way that this offensive tackle class has sorted itself out in the early chapter of the season, what's the storyline or the player or the development that stands out to you the most?
For me, is who wants to be the guy, right? The offensive tackle position is much like the quarterback situation for this draft class, where it's like, who is the guy, right? Like, we have a couple prospects where they have, a couple qualities that we really enjoy, but it's still one, big quality that we're missing that we don't feel completely confident, in saying that, okay, that's offensive tackle one. And then we're coming off a offensive tackle class from last year where we had Ike McQuan, we had Charles Cross, we had Evan Neal, and I'm not sure if we see that yet. So for me, the storyline is just paying attention and see who emerges. We know that Paris Johnson was moving from the right side of the line to the left side of the line, but it hasn't necessarily played out exactly how we thought it played out thus far. So for me, I'm going to be paying attention to, who is going to be the guy who wants to take over and be offensive tackle one.
Well, Keith,
Joe, I'll ask you that same question. Go ahead.
It's interesting because I agree with Keith, right? Like, who wants to be offensive tackle one? But what I really like is it feels like we've got some more contenders, right? There's a few more guys at the top of this that we feel better about, and whether that's Jalen Duncan, Maryland, Broderick Jones, a big-time riser out of Georgia, Peter Skoronski at Northwestern, and then Paris Johnson continuing to kind of showcase himself at that left tackle spot. I think we got four guys now that are in this conversation. Is any one of them a top 5 pick? I don't know at this point, but I feel a lot more comfortable about the top of this offensive tackle class as we've gotten through the early stages of this 2020 college football season.
Bane?
Yeah, for me, man, like Joe talked about having so many different names, I want to point out DeJuan Jones. Like, I feel like that's someone that a lot of people, it's not a sexy name. He's the opposite tackle of Paris Johnson in Ohio State, but when you won't miss him. I guarantee you, when you pop on the tape, you will not miss DeJuan Jones. He's a big body, a big presence, but I've liked the movement skills I've seen from him, guys. When I've turned on the tape and watched this Ohio State offense, he's not someone that has given a lot of pressure up, only one pressure and one hurry on the season, and that's allowed his quarterback, potential Heisman favorite, C.J. Stroud, to feel comfortable in the pocket. And for me, it's like, yes, Paris Johnson is the high name, but I think that DeJuan Jones right now has played better ball than Paris Johnson.
I think what's really interesting to me is, Joe, you mentioned kind of the emergence of another name or two that you feel really confident in the top tier with the four names and Duncan and Skoronski and Jones and Paris Johnson. But I can't help but look at the next tier down, and there's a pretty consistent, like, status quo, minor regression, kind of relative to some other players in that general tier. Carter Warren, he's down a spot. Darnell Wright's down 12. DeJuan Jones is down 6. Anton Harrison's down 3. You got to get all the way down to Zion Nelson, the last offensive tackle to actually make the TDN 100, to get another offensive tackle whose stock is up from where we had it a month ago, and he is up 11 spots. Now, Trevor Reed from Louisville is a narrow miss. We'll see if he can continue to build momentum. He showed up in the 80s and 90s in a couple of ballots along the way. But I think that's kind of the interesting foil between the separation of the top four names and the status quo of some of the other names as we looked. And in the non-conference schedule, we've had a chance to see some really good matchups for these prospects. And yet some of those guys have not grown teeth as well. But as we continue this conversation, Joe, I'm going to come back to you and ask you, as the schedule shifts to conference play, who do you think has the most to gain from what's ahead of them in the coming months?
Well, I think it's Broderick Jones from Georgia. And this is a guy who only started a few games last year, and you loved what you saw. I mean, I watched the Missouri and the Tennessee games from last year, and I kind of came away saying, wow, I think this guy can be a really, really dynamic player and a big-time prospect, but I don't have enough tape. Well, we've seen 3 games, and he's playing like he did in those 2 games. So we're seeing a high-quality skill set, right? A lot of tools, a lot of mobility, length, power, all that stuff, good technique. He plays under control, and you're seeing that show up across a bigger sample size. And we know with Georgia, the tests are going to continue coming, right? Playing in the SEC, team we expect to be in the SEC championship game and in the playoffs. So he's going to get tested, and as that sample size continues to grow and he continues to play at a high level, he's going to continue to rise. And I think he's destined to ultimately be our top offensive tackle if that sample size continues to expand and him play at the level we've seen him play to this point.
Damian, I would love for you to share with the world a little bit about Jordan Morgan from Arizona. This was a player who checked in on your ballot, and the rest of the group's not quite there yet. And I'm sure that's not a name. Arizona hasn't put out too many pro prospects in recent years. What do people need to know about Jordan Morgan as a player who you think was worthy of an end of a TDN 100 ballot vote through the early couple of weeks this season?
Yeah, I mean, he looks the part. He checks the arm length. He's got, nice length and nice reach, good movement skills with the feet, and in pass pro. And I remember when I first watched him, I was actually watching Cam Thomas at San Diego State, and that's how he actually originally got onto my radar, and that was months ago, before we even got to the summer. And I was like, man, like this, whoever this tackle is for Arizona, he's really handling Cam Thomas, and Cam Thomas was one of the better pass rushers in college football last year. He's able to handle and mirror him laterally in the pass sets, and able to anchor a little bit in the run game as well. So he's a guy that you think about. He works well in, like I said, the athleticism, the quickness. Think about reach blocking and zone blocking schemes, and getting to his landmarks and cutting off backside rushers. He shows some of those traits and athletic and agility skill sets that you look for in those type of tackles.
Keith, and I'm going to come to you and ask about Anton Harrison, who you're the highest on by 22 spots. You have him in the top 50, so you like him. And listen, Anton Harrison, your co-host on Talent Factors, the only one who didn't get the memo put him in his top 100 at all, so you know who to be mad at for that. Joe Marino and I are representing Anton Harrison top 100 votes, but you are comfortably the highest here. So some people might hear Big 12 offensive lineman and kind of get scared. What do you see that you like about him so much?
Yeah, and this is just what you develop and what you like in a position, right? And for me, it's all about looking from their feet up and looking at their feet, right? And Anton Harrison appears to be a pretty good athlete out there. Like you see when they put him on the island, obviously he plays in this Oklahoma offense where they do a lot of different things with their offensive line and blocking schemes, pulling, all type of different things. And Anton Harrison shows the ability to be able to execute those type of blocks. The improvement part, I think, is just strength, right? That is where you can kind of throw in the Big 12 notion and, that stereotype around that conference. But, man, you give me the feet, you give me the athletic profile, and I feel like the rest of it I can coach. So this is a guy that I think as we go deeper into the season and Oklahoma starts to play, the bigger profile games and he's on TV more, I think people will be like, you know what, this 6'5" left tackle right here, he has some tools that the NFL can work with.
Well, anybody who's known Damian Parson for any amount of time knows that he is the driver of the hype bus, and I just threw him under the bus. So we're going to get out of here before he tags me back. That's the word on this offensive tackle class through the first couple of weeks of the 2022 college football season for the 2023 NFL Draft. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, get the notifications for all of our updates for TDN 100 and all of our content, and visit thedraftnetwork.com to see the full TDN 100 list.